What is up, and welcome to another edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing the podcast. We are brought to you guys today by our advertisers. Our advertisers are Bell to Bell Fitness, Shator, a realtor out in Arizona, former Bruin alum, and my main man Howard Cheng, a realtor right here in Los Angeles. Let's go through them, guys. Bell to Bell Fitness is a boxing gym on the West Coast used by their FIT acronym, Fight Inspired Training. My main man, Tony Gonzalez, was the boxing coach for UCLA for over 10 years. He has built this gym on the West Side to learn how to boxing, stay in shape, and get you all the essentials you need to become somebody that is obsessed with boxing and fitness. Make sure to check it out. Go into Bell to Bell Fitness and say you heard about it from the Bruin Bible, and you're going to get a free session with Tony Gonzalez. So make sure to check that out. Shator, my main man. Shator is a licensed real estate agent in Arizona and a lifelong Bruin. He's a current Wooden Athletic Fund donor and football season ticket holder. When not selling houses or going to UCLA games, he loves to travel the country, checking out different arenas, ballparks, and stadiums. If you're looking to make the move to Arizona or know someone who is, please reach out to our loyal friend, Mr. Shator. His phone number is 602-487-3975. Once again, his number is 602-487-3975. Make sure to check that out. And then the local realtor we got out here, Howard Cheng. Howard Cheng is a local realtor with the Serene Team at eXp Realty. Their team has an office right here in Culver City, though they help clients buy and sell homes all over the LA County and the surrounding areas. Howard and his team do a ton of business and are super in tune with the market, knowing winning strategies to give their clients a competitive advantage. Have amazing vendor referrals, are a one-stop shop for anything real estate, and just provide a ton of value for their clients. Howard and his partner, Kyle Draper, are UCLA alums and a huge fans of the UCLA football and basketball programs. You will often see them at games, tailgating and networking, and staying involved with the UCLA alumni community. They would love to help any fellow alumni with accomplishing their real estate goals. So if you guys have any real estate needs in the LA area, look no further. Howard is your guy. All right, guys, we're going to go into the episode. Man, what is up, UCLA fan base? It is the Friday portion of the Bruin Pod on the Bruin Bible. Energy is high. Summer is in full swing, but madman, I kind of looked at, how close we are to college football. We're about 5 Saturdays away from college football, being in our living rooms, being present in our daily lives. Man, it feels far, but I know it's going to go just like this when it comes down to it. Madman, how are we doing as we approach another weekend in Southern California? July, arguably my favorite month of the year. I mean, I hate not having football, but summer vacation always makes me think of July, and that's exactly where we're at right now.
Love it, brother. This is just, it's a special time of the year. Always such a delight to be able to talk Bruin football with you, our beloved Bruins, our baby Bruins. We love them so much. And middle of the summer, so it's been a fun time with some travels and some family and some friends, but we are inching closer, Will, to that opening weekend in Hawaii. I mean, dare we say we're looking at about 50 days away now, about 45 days. This thing is getting really close. So can't wait to actually talk about real football. I mean, think about it, Thriller. The last time you and I got an opportunity to talk about something that actually occurred on the field was the LA Bowl. I mean, and think about how, that feels like 10 years ago at this point. That feels like 4 or 5 lifetimes ago. New coaching staff, new defensive roster, all of these new storylines. So excited that we're inching closer to real football here, just about 6 weeks away.
Yeah, Collin taking years off my life as the starting quarterback for UCLA. Just a lot of stuff with UCLA and how long it's been, man. And we cooked up a pretty fun episode for you guys. I'm very excited for this one. When you think of Deshaun Foster, you think of one position group and one position group only. It is the running back room. He was such a talented running back of his own right, went to the NFL, played, scored that amazing touchdown in the Super Bowl for the Carolina Panthers, played for some elite Panthers team, finished with my 49ers, and then he became arguably the best running backs coach in college football. I know we both believe he was the best pound for pound at that position group. So we're going to break down UCLA's running back room, and then we're going to talk about the top 5 running backs we have projected for the Big Ten season. I think this is a really fun exercise. How did you prep for this, brother? I think I'm as excited for this one as I've been in a long time for one of our topics.
No doubt about it, because this is bread and butter. This is sort of in the wheelhouse of Deshaun. And frankly, also, Will, the predecessor in the system. I mean, Chip Kelly was always kind of a run first. Everything was built off the run. So UCLA has built a tremendous lineage and pedigree at the running back position over the last 7 or 8 years now, as evidenced by how successful guys have been in a UCLA uniform, but also their transference to the NFL. So this is kind of the creme de la creme, if you will, of the roster and sort of really the meat and potatoes. I know that's a lot of food analogies. Perhaps I'm hungry, but, so be it.
Give this guy a plate of food, man. We need to get him hungry.
Thriller, I've been watching The Bear. That's half my problem right now. What a phenomenal show. I know I'm at middle of season 3. You're saving season 3 with some loved ones, so certainly not going to give everything away. But Chef, why don't you take it away? Thank you, Chef.
Take it away, Chef. 23 Emmy nominations too.
Oh my God!
That come out,
including a comedy. Like, in what universe is it a comedy? I mean, like, it's that good a show that, like, the 5 jokes that they tell are so good that they're, nominated for a comedy too. So definitely a must watch. I mean, it's called The Bear. The Bruins are baby bears. Like, it's sort of a must watch for the UCLA Bruin faithful.
Well, you saw the collab poster, not to get too far down a rabbit hole. They actually had a collab poster with the Bear around UCLA's campus, and they kind of worked on together, which I thought was like, I love the Bear and I love UCLA just equally. So that was just a match made in heaven, some peanut butter and jelly there. No doubt. Guy we got to start with, Madman. This is the guy we've tabbed as the next running back for a couple of years now. That Cal game, we handed him the torch when he saved us against Cal. Back up north after a terrible loss to USC. Comes out this past year, and, we felt at times it could have been a little bit more, but, 5.2 yards a carry, 857 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. It was pretty good. I liked what I saw from him. TJ Harden's had his moments, man, where he looks like he is special. I think this is finally going to be the year, if I'm going to be honest with you, man. He's had so many crowded backfields. If you look at the UCLA trajectory under the Chip Kelly era, under the likes of a Deshaun Foster, you have a Joshua Kelly and a Demetric Felton in the room at the same time. You have a Britton Brown and a Zach Charbonnet in the room at the same time. Harden this year, I know Keegan Jones came back. I know Cameron Jones, highly touted freshman running back, is going to be there on campus. But this really feels like the keys to the car were tossed to TJ Harden when it comes to this running back room. And I'm very excited to talk about it. So I've cooked up some over-unders for you when it comes to TJ Harden and what he could potentially do. Remember, guys, 156 carries, 827 yards on the ground, 5.2 yards per carry last year at 8 touchdowns. So, Madman, in this frame of thinking, he had 156 carries last year. Over under 199.5 carries for TJ Harden heading into his first year in Big Ten football.
Wow, great. That's a great number, Will, because you're essentially saying 200 or over. I think if you just sort of do the math here of 12 regular season games, hopefully a bowl game at number 13, to get to 200 carries, you're looking at about 17 carries a game. With that math at about a 12-game clip, I think 17 carries puts you at 204. So I'm going to go over, especially when you're talking about Big Ten play. You've talked about it so well here, Will. We've always had a duo at UCLA in terms of the backfield, 2 guys to be able to share the load. Look, even the year that Zach Charbonnet tore it up, and he was, I think, unquestionably the greatest running back of this sequence, right, of this last 7-8 years, no doubt about it. There were games where he was being preserved, right? I mean, 8-9 carries and in some of the non-conference games and what have you. But I think this particular configuration of the running back room, it is unquestionably TJ Harden's year. This is year 3, as you mentioned. We talk a lot about the power of year 3 with a head coach, the power of year 3 with a quarterback. I think we're going to see a significant year 3 bump with TJ Harden. He's going to go over the 200 carry mark because, again, Keegan Jones is a complementary piece, but I think Keegan Jones is going to be used a lot more as a receiver out of the backfield. He's going to be in that screen game, kind of more of that spread game. But the bread and butter in between the tackles, touches are going to go to TJ Harden. And that ability, particularly on the road, to control the clock, control the line of scrimmage, control the tempo. TJ Harden's going to have a number of 20-plus carry games this particular season. I love it, Will. I love the number you set. I'm going over.
Hammering the over. We're going to keep track of these bets throughout the season and see if we come close to one of our predictions are. This one's a little bit tougher. I'm not going to go immediately to yards. He had 22 catches last year out of the backfield. Check down King, him and Keegan Jones, very good out of the backfield using their hands as well. 24 and a half catches for TJ Harden this year.
Wow. That's a really good one because you're putting it right at 2, right? Because it's a 12-game season. You're saying, can he get 2 catches a game? And I think there's a couple of different factors here, Will. One is it's going to come down to also the quality of the offensive line, right? Is if Ethan Garbers has time, he's going to be able to throw the ball down the field more, and he's going to be able to kind of go through his reads more. If he has less time, he's going to have to kind of pick his one guy and go there. And sometimes when you've got a lot of less, when you don't have as much time, sometimes it's kind of dangerous to throw the ball in the flat, and so it can be a little bit daunting there. I think the combination of perhaps the offensive line gonna go through a growth journey over the course of the season, coupled with the fact that you've got a Logan Loya as like your primary receiver, who is that slot guy, 6-7 yards, and you've got your eye there, coupled with the fact that you've got a Rico Hines, who also is sort of an in-between guy that can kind of get open in short yardage, and the fact that you've got Keegan Jones out of the backfield in certain situations to be kind of that primary receiver out of the backfield. I think it's going to be super close, Will, but I'm going to go slightly under on the 24 and a half catches with Harden.
Slightly under. I love it. I think you're right. I think for pass catching situations, I think they're going to focus more with Keegan, who was such a gift coming back for UCLA last year. But, I'm also in the category. I think this, leads into my next question. 1,100 yards. There's not a lot of tailbacks in this group. He had, close to 1,000 this past year, 827 yards on 156 carries. We're banking on him getting over the 200 carry mark. That was one of the bets we had. Let's say he gets around that same clip, 5.2 yards a carry. It's kind of right around that, 1,100 yard mark. Over under 1,100 yards. If we truly believe he is what he is, I think I'm taking the over, but I want to hear your answer.
Absolutely. I'm taking the over. And I think that the success of UCLA in many ways is going to be dependent upon that number in a lot of ways. And I think if we really kind of think about it, Will, if we believe he's going to be a 200-plus carry back, and you just kind of do the math there at 5.2, I mean, if he's doing 17, 18 carries a game, at 18 carries, 5 yards a carry is 90 yards. And so if you're saying at 90 yards a game over the course of 13 games, that's going to put you over 1,100. And so obviously there's an element of health here and him not getting banged up. But I think that 1,100 is a very achievable goal. And I think he's going to go over. And I would sort of take it perhaps even one step further, Will. I think he's going to be north of 1,150, perhaps even north of 1,200. I think it's going to be that kind of year for TJ Harden. He's going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's going to come really strong out of the gates. I could see a world with Hawaii and Indiana where he's got kind of back-to-back, like 125 type of games. He's at 252 games in, getting himself in a really nice position. And then I think we're going to see a season north of 1,100.
Yeah, and to me, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm looking back at the running backs. He is the best home run hitter, which means he gets out in the open field, he's likely gone, probably since Demetric Felton for UCLA.
Right.
Kaz Allen, I never really considered a true running back. Charbonnet is kind of that burly running back that can just run through 6 guys. Oh, my God. After this episode, I'm going to throw in some Charbonnet highlights because it's just unbelievable what that guy was doing on the football field. Britton Brown, more of a kind of, run between the tackles type of guy. But Harden, I mean, we saw it, in the San Diego State game. He had that 60-yard touchdown run. This guy can fly when he gets out in the open field. Just cooked up a couple more for you. Keegan Jones. He had 22 catches in his heyday. Dude, he only had 14, believe it or not, last year. That was kind of one of our, big complaints on the UCLA podcast. Outside of, who was returning kicks for us last year? It was our favorite guy who was like a quarterback, running back, Yankov. That was the most inexcusable thing in the history of UCLA football. We've got Logan Loya and Yankov as returning kicks. But Keegan Jones, his high year was 22 catches. I think we're going to see a lot more Keegan this year with a very depleted backfield. Maybe not the carries, but for the catching standpoint, I put 27 and a half catches which is a decent amount, but I think he's going to be out there a lot. His previous high was 22. I think we're going to see a lot of Keegan Jones.
I totally agree with you, Will. I mean, especially given what we saw in the offseason here of Keegan Jones putting himself in the transfer portal, looking at other opportunities. Deshaun Foster, of course, takes the job. And one of the first items on the agenda of the Foster era is to bring Keegan Jones back. And if you recall, the moment he got Keegan Jones back, he said, I got my guy back. I got my running back here again. So you know that under a Deshaun Foster regime, 14 receptions was totally unacceptable last year, and there's more to be had. So I think he's definitely going to be much higher than 14. I think he's going to be north of 22. And I think, again, Will, there's going to be a couple of opportunities here where he's going to be in the game and you're going to do misdirection. You're going to do screen passes. You're going to do bubble screens. You're going to do some things with stack. There might even be a couple just push passes to just kind of get Keegan Jones the ball, with a head of steam to be able to go make a play, make a couple of cuts. I'm totally with you. I think, to me, how much I love Loya. You know how much I love Flores. I think there's a world where Keegan Jones is the third leading receiver on UCLA this year. And so I think north of 27.5 is absolutely correct.
All right. Well, that's all the over-unders I've got for the running back room. I'm going to run through my top 5 running backs really quickly, and I'll give you the floor. If you like some of them, if I miss somebody, please let me know. Number 5, I'm actually going TJ Harden. I think he sneaks into the top 5. If he's able to build upon that 1150, that 1,200-yard mark you were talking about, who knows, man? He could keep climbing that list until we could be at a spot where we're talking about TJ Harden making an all-Big Ten team. I like his opportunity there. Number 4, Donavyn Edwards, a guy that really has had 5 good college football games, but let me read them off to you. 185 yards and a touchdown against Purdue, Big Ten championship 2 years ago. The masterclass, his magnum opus to this point, 22 carries, 216 yards, and 2 touchdowns against Ohio State, including that 85-yarder to seal the game. 16 carries, 173 yards, and 2 touchdowns against number 10 Penn State. And then the national championship kind of disappears for an entire year after we were kind of expecting his breakout year. Was more Blake Corum than Donavyn Edwards, but really was the defining factor of that national championship for Michigan getting out early. 6 carries, 104 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I got Donavyn Edwards at 4. I think he's too talented. It's his show now. I think he's going to get a lot of shine there. I got to give some love, man, to the returning Big Ten rushing champ, Kyle Monange, Rutgers. 1,262 yards last year. Did it like a pretty impressive, clip. Ran for over 200 carries, 5.5 yards a carry at that. Got close to 10 touchdowns. I got to give him some love. Until you knock off the top dog, he's got to be somewhere in the top 5. Monange, going to give him his due. And then just for the embarrassment of riches, man, Ohio State doesn't have the second best. They have the first and second best running backs in the conference, man. TreVeyon Henderson has been a guy that I think has had scouts and, potential, people looking at his NFL career drooling. He has only rushed for over 1,000 yards one time. He came damn close last year. He had a lot of injuries he dealt with. Everyone's kind of banking on TreVeyon Henderson putting it all together this year. And then I'm going to be honest, Quinshon Judkins, man. This guy is maybe the best running back in college football. 31 touchdowns in the last 2 years. Last year alone, 274 carries for a college running back. 1,500 plus yards, 5.7 yards a carry, and 16 touchdowns. I'm a little pissed because if he stayed at Ole Miss, I think he would have been at a real shot at being the first running back to win a Heisman Trophy since Derrick Henry. Like, I think that's a real conversation we could have been having.
Yeah.
Going to Ohio State with Henderson in the same backfield, I think that cancels each other's out. But Judkins has got to be number 1 for me, given his resume, given him going to a Chip Kelly run offense. Guys, I'm sorry, Chip Kelly. We didn't like him at UCLA. He can dial up a run game with the best of them. That's a fact. Talk to me about that top 5. Anyone you would add?
I love it, Will. I think it's really spot on. I'll start at the top with Judkins and Henderson. I mean, my God, I don't recall a scarier duo at the running back position than perhaps Reggie Bush and Lendale White. I think I think that's where this could be if it becomes kind of reaches its potential. And then, look, we were talking about Britton Brown, Zach Charbonnet, Joshua Kelly, Demetric Felton. Oh, by the way, who was the head coach of all of those teams? To your point, Chip Kelly. Now you give Chip Kelly basically 2 5-stars, 2 Ferraris. This is going to be an absolutely frightening situation. I love bringing back the Rutgers rushing champion. I think that's so spot on. Rutgers is going to continue to pound the football. So I think that's going to be kind of a stat padding type of a season. I love the dark horse with Donavyn Edwards. I mean, Donavyn Edwards is sort of like the Robert Ory of college football at this point, where it's like, wake me up for the big games. I'm not going to be bothered by these lower and mid-tier Big Ten teams. Just wake me up for like Ohio State in the national championship game, and I'll be ready. I think it's going to be fascinating to see Donavyn Edwards now needing to step in to a leading role and what that looks like from kind of a workhorse standpoint. And then I think TJ Harden at 5 is really strong. I think the dark horse, particularly with the Foster emphasis. The one thing I'll say to keep an eye on, not that I don't disagree, that I don't agree with all 5 here, but maybe there is a spot you got to think, and I don't know who, because the running back room is pretty crowded there. But with the level of talent, with the level of tenacity in the trenches, you got to wonder if an Oregon guy doesn't appear in that top 5, and I think that's one to sort of keep an eye on. Obviously, the loss of Irving was absolutely huge for this team last year, but you got to believe, just given where they are in terms of recruiting, given where they are in terms of depth, given where they are in terms of NIL, and just given the way Dan Lanning wants to sort of approach his team from a balance standpoint, one of those young kids, I think, from Oregon is going to emerge and be in that top 5. So I may take out either Edwards or Rutgers, Mungie, and put in somebody from Oregon. That would be sort of my one take there in terms of a revision. But other than that, Will, it's absolutely spot on. And look, this is kind of, along with the SEC, the ultimate, not just football conference in the country, but the ultimate sort of trenches conference in the country. So to be top 5 on this list is probably one of the greatest compliments you can get at any position, at any conference in the country. So excited to see it. I think Harden is going to surprise a ton of people this year. And I think he's really going to need to be the linchpin for UCLA to be in that 7-win, 8-win conversation this year and move forward and build upon the momentum from last year and really set up Deshaun Foster for success year 1. I think it's going to happen. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, man. And to your credit, the guy that was, left off, he was the 6th man on a 5-team or player list. It was Jordan James from Oregon.
Yeah.
7.1 yards a carry last year. This guy is
I
probably
think James kind of gets in there, Will. We talk about year over year how good that Oregon offensive line is, how deep they are, just the level of balance they're going to have. They got 5 stars all over the place, particularly on the outside. You're not going to be able to load up the box with Oregon. And I think James, with his speed, his quickness, I think there's an opportunity there for him to have a big-time year.
Last question. We're headed to Big Ten Media Day next week. If you were to guess a team in a program, Ohio State or Oregon, coming in, who's your favorite to win the conference? Who do you got for me?
That's so hard. I think with everything going on right now, Will, the edge, where Ryan Day is, bringing in Chip Kelly, I think it showed a lot of maturity that he's handing off the keys to the offense to somebody else so he can be more the CEO, be more mindful. 3 consecutive losses to Michigan, including one where it wasn't even Harbaugh. It was Sharon Moore. I think there is just such a fire under Ryan Day's rear end. I'm going to give the edge to Ohio State.
You heard it here first. Ohio State, I actually agree with it. But UCLA, man, we got to talk about the Bruins moving forward. We're going to be breaking down the top receivers in the conference next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Much love, guys. We are officially out. You guys have an awesome weekend. 1090 The Mightier. We'll be back soon.